Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the, I believe, 69th episode of our first run through Book of Hours on YouTube, playing as the artist. Now, as usual, I actually see that there was a comment on the previous video talking about looking forward to my crafting episode, and I don't recall if I had promised any crafting for this particular one. My intention definitely is to do some crafting in terms of trying to, build my capabilities in terms of being able to go further in the house. But I'm definitely at a point where I want to review what's going on and see if I can make a bit of sense of the day's work. I also forgot to bring my notebook with me. So this first episode, I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way and rely on my memory. So, we had... Hang on, we're still spraying it? Right, okay, so I was just thinking, I remember that there had been a bit of business in terms of trying to figure out whether or not I would take advantage of another miner to be able to get through the rustling stair and such. But I believe in order to do that, I would need to generate an old moment. And with the old moment, we would need basically the day... Well, there's an outside chance that I would be able to make the old moment, but I think for that one, I would essentially have to break my self-imposed rule of not using the Lignum Vitae Blanc. And the biggest thing here is that being able to open that up is not that important to me right now. Also, if we're able to open up the wheel-filled spring, perhaps I would also be able to go through the rustling stair. We've got the Mist-Sunk Meadow. Now, if you've not played this game, or if you've not got to a certain point on this game, this is actually a fairly important and interesting location. So, the Mist-Sunk Meadow, there is grass beneath my feet and a mingle of wildflower scents, but above all, the damp salt vapors of a thick sea fog. Somewhere in the fog, I think I hear a distant bell, far away, as if it were beneath the sea. Perhaps this can be blown away, perhaps sung away, if I bring the right powers and the right assistance. So we will definitely be unlocking this at some point, but overall, I think what I just need to do right now is I need to work out my game plan for the oncoming day. So with the blackened yard, I think there's a pretty good argument that we should be able to use Mr. Kill to go further. And I mean, I don't dislike this idea of trying to make the progress that I can. I'm trying to remember if we do have another Solomon's Preparation. So with Mr. Kill, in fact, this is one that I will take some time to make a note about. Just because I don't have the notebook doesn't mean I don't have a notebook. So with Mr. Kill, we would have 2 winter. With the Solomon's Preparation, that would be a total of 6. With Whist, we would add another 2. Let's say that the best memory I can get is a 2, which probably isn't true. But among those, so 2 and 4 is 6, plus 2 is 8, 10. Yeah, so we don't even need to give up anything all that important. So perhaps that's something I could do right now. Now, the other thing that I might want to take a look at would be Mrs. Kill, because we do have the Arab, the plus Arab, so if we did that, Mrs. Kill starts with the 2. I think the fact that it's just plus 1 probably keeps this from being an obvious advantage. So we would add the Arab. Again, we probably can do better than a 2 for the memory. Now the question here would be what kind of drink am I providing? So if we go for the Witching to Sane, we have 2, 3, 2, 2. 6 and 3 is 9. But then we could add the spices. Okay, so that's actually a little bit more tempting here, for the simple reason that a Witching to Sane is very easy for me to make. In fact, I already have one, and then we can create another one later. And then because we can use the spice scales, which is a tool, we can actually bring Mrs. Kill up to the relevant levels. So I think that's how we're going to approach the day. And then anything else is a nice little bonus. But the Squawkful Logia, it's not clear how we're going to get that rose or that sky. But for the Blackened Yard, a ferocious heat has scorched, even melted the stones. But at the bridge, it's only here and there. Horribly, here and there mostly seem to be where people happen to be standing. Charred, cracked bones scattered the yard. So obviously you want to get the midwife to help you out. Alright, so let's have a quick chat with Mrs. Kill. We'll use the simpler Arab in this case. Mrs. Kill's mood always improves when I drop by. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. Now, it would seem to me that it's not a bad idea for me to just sit back and wait, because we're going to be able to talk with her quite a bit. So we'll use the Arab to boost her her heart right away. In fact, one of the things I might have been able to do would be to use the core to talk with Mrs. Kill because of the Grail there. Then we would use the Arab Plus to boost her her stats. And then we could use the other Arab to create the Witching to Sane. Although I think I should be able to do that, you know, no matter what, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so the Fet, the Tryst, and the Health, I think I'm going to set those aside so that I can continue to explore Crowcross Sands and some other things. It also occurred to me, I think I had been talking about wanting to, I think I had talked about wanting to go swimming. I believe that is enabled, but I also suspect that I would need to reset the sea's edge, so I would actually need to employ a recipe before I need to employ a recipe before I can actually take advantage of the new features. I think that was the mistake I was making earlier, but I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that later. I don't dislike the idea of making a bit of money. Again, it's easy to reset this stuff, so manual labor, there's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. And I still think it's not a bad idea for us to try a bit of crafting, but again, it would be nice to be a little more systematic, I suppose. I don't know, we'll figure this out, but you know what, while I'm at it, let's we will take care of the beehive. So, yeah, we'll go orchids and narcotics there. Honey or beeswax if I'm careful. So Crowcross Sands, I believe, yeah, we can use with the Tryst. I don't know if we have Pearl and Tide. That always feels the most appropriate. I suppose insects and nectars would have made a little more sense with the beehive. And then we should be able to use the Fet with the Moor. And of course the hope here is that we get the Lignum Vitae block. Okay. So I think that's a good start. Again, I'm not going to bother bringing in the heart yet. It's also occurred to me, I've forgotten where I was. I think I was still working on the Levinson prefigures before... in terms of examining items, and I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm still not opposed to doing that, but let's maybe take care of our journey through the Kukurbit first. And we have a gale, so this might have changed things as far as the heart is concerned, but I'm not too fussed about staying the course as we have right now. So the one thing that would have been different would be I could use the gale, the core and the gale, but in the end, I think the net value is still less than using the Arab, simply because Mrs. Kill has 2 Grail rather than the 1 heart. So even if we're getting sort of the equivalent of Arab here, I think I still create some problems for myself. So our aim here is to get Mrs. Kill up to level 10 Grail, so we'll start that with the collaboration. My pride will find an echo in theirs. And perhaps what I will do is I'll start by making a Witching to Sane. We can use the core for that. We've already used up the elements of the soul that don't make us money. So we should take that. Desires and Dissolutions should do the trick. Yes. Hush House still rings with thwarted desires. I will mix that into a Tisane. Now, this isn't to say that there isn't a benefit to me creating another Solomon's Preparation. That might actually be a fairly wise option, given that we may need some other rooms. But I figure I can make that a bit later in the day. Once we get to the halfway point of the day, that would maybe be the point where I want to make a clear decision. But if I have an opportunity to make something with, let's say, the Gale, so in this case it would be wise to maybe keep the Fost aside, and maybe I want to renew the core. Of course, that's already happening. I figure we can do some experiments that we wouldn't normally be able to. And then after the season is passed, maybe we'll go back to reading some books. Eagerly we anticipate our work. So we've gotten the element of the soul. We still need the memory, and then I also need the tool. So we'll take care of the spice scales, but we do want to start talking with Mrs. Kill reasonably soon, because that's going to be where we get our satisfaction from. And if we don't, then we need to read a book, and we need to make sure that we have an element of the soul available for that. Again, it's not a big deal. We'll take care of that by the end of the day. But it's just one of these things where I want to make sure I have my ducks in a row before I give up a consumable. And of course, the more opportunities I have to talk with Mrs. Kill, the more likely it is that I'm going to get that memory. And of course, I can just plan everything a little bit better. But it's not critical. The other thing I should mention about the Gale, by the way, is I'm still interested in using it, but if I really need, I always have the option of the Swaddled Thunder, so I can actually get something better than a Gale. But it's nice to take advantage of the things that I have available to me. As they used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. It's best when it's warm, but it'll keep. Well, we are basically going to serve that the second Mrs. Kill becomes available. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, so technically I'm breaking one of my rules here by adding the witching to Sane at this point. Obviously, we don't yet have the memory that can boost Mrs. Kill's status to the 10, but I can I can get that from a book. We've got several. Where is it? Yeah, this is the satisfaction shelf. Okay, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So another hawthorn black. We've got a vase of rushes, a subtle ornament. And beeswax. Beeswax is very welcome. I will eventually want to mess around with some candles. For now, though, we'll just store it in the dispensary. Now let's find a place for the... We actually have a lot of the statues of still... Well, actually, there's a couple things we can do. So we can move Serena Blackwood to this shelf. There we go. William Harry's is also upstairs still, but I figure we'll take all the places where people are supposed to go. We'll use those first, and then we can figure out the next steps. So... Serena Blackwood, this bust is carved from alabaster, and William Harry's, this bust is cast in highly polished bronze. One of the challenges that I do have in this kind of a playthrough is having solved the sort of staircase in another session. You know, it's very tempting to just put everyone where they need to go, but the hope is always that, you know, I play this game a little bit like it's my very first time, or at the very least I take actions once they're prompted within the game. And you can think of that as role-playing, but there's actually another very specific reason why it's good to play that way. If you rely a bit too much, and this can even be true for things that have been written down, although, you know, at least if it's online, there's potentially people who will... who will say otherwise if it winds up being, you know, a mistake. But generally, what happens is, if you start relying too much on this idea of, okay, you know, I've always done this thing. I'm always going to put them, you know, put them in this order. And so far as I can tell, there is only one correct order for the busts. But excuse me. Ah. Wow. Sorry about that. But basically, if you rely too much on this, you know, I've always done it this way, or, you know, I tried this one thing and it didn't work out, so I'm never going to try it again. Excuse me. You don't really learn. So what's kind of nice is that if you go with actions that are maybe motivated within the game, that can either inform you or possibly remind you of actions that maybe you'd forgotten about, maybe you didn't know about. And a good example of this, which we haven't done any of yet, we had an opportunity, but you know, we've just it's not quite the time for this. But when you're finding treasures of the house, I know for a fact for at least one of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was more than one, that you can excuse me, you can solve them with more than one, and in fact more than one of the treasures of the house can be are recommended when you read certain books. Now again, I believe we've actually read at least one of them. I don't recall if we have Singlefoot songs. I'm pretty sure that one had a no, apparently not. Anyways, there's a few books which have sort of different references. There's also films. In fact, I can't recall. We do have one film here, but it's in Hyksos, so I'm not really able to do anything with that. But where I'm going with all of this is just if you rely on memory, then potentially you work yourself into a rut, and sometimes that can be a helpful shorthand. But again, like any shorthand, if you rely on it too much, then you do run into that danger where, you know, when you're in a different situation, or perhaps when you're in a situation where another path might be more appropriate, you sometimes will close yourself off by it. And so there's sort of a twofold benefit. In the case of the busts, it's hard to justify in terms of saying that I get any better outcome individually from that case. But in terms of an overall method, it's actually, in my view, quite a helpful thing to not take things for granted, and in fact to, you know, sort of play it like it's your first time around, and that way you're able to get the benefit of, you know, maybe some hints that you didn't pick up on the first time. And that's true for a Cultist Simulator as well. Anyways, so we've got a Wista Metal, a Fost, and a Shapt to work with. We are getting close to the midpoint of the day, so I suppose I'm going to want to make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to try anything with the miner, and I think probably no. There may be a path forward, but it's not one that I think. Like I said, the risks and the time it would take to be able to get a fairly unimportant location just isn't really worth it. So, you know, the mines will still be open. You know, in a year from now, we can keep working on it. But I am just going to sit here and wait. Actually, one other thing I think I will do is I'll pour a glass of water, and I think I will make another Solomon's preparation. We don't need it for this, but I think I am at a point where I may want to call on Mr. Kill again. So we'll use Inks of Containment. Oh, I gotta pour the water first. Actually, it might be an idea for me to draw up that water. We could do that with the core that comes back. Serve appropriately. Pour out. Poured out. Okay, so we'll use the whisk, the inks of containment. Oh, we don't have a memory, so I may have just wasted a bunch of time with this. I'm sure we can make something happen here. Okay. It's like I had some overflow. Did I put the... Yeah, I've got something in the... Okay, yeah, so we don't need the memory, it turns out. Alright, muddle and mix a wintry preparation. So I'm doing that now just because we're at the halfway point of the day, and so that's because that's a higher level recipe that takes 90 seconds as opposed to 60. Nice drop down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. And perhaps, I'm trying to decide, maybe what I'll do is I'll play around with the Gale. Actually, with the core. Yeah, you know what? Now's not a bad time, so what I'll do is I'll play around with the Gale and some... and the recipes for now. And then what I can do is we'll maybe use the core to draw up another pitcher of water, just to save me the effort. So let's start. The dispensary is probably my best bet here. I'll do something else with the heart, but this is not a bad start. So we'll take the core, we'll take the Gale. Now Ruby-wise Ruin should do the trick. We don't have the deluxe version of the Sacrament, or collector's edition of the Sacrament Callicite. But we do have a Ruby-wise Ruin. Oh, actually, Ruby-wise Ruin doesn't have that much heart. Surely there was a better heart. The Momets, maybe? Well, sort of, but it's more the flushed. Okay. For some reason, I thought this was a much higher heart aspect than it was. I think I'm sort of stuck with it because I don't have a whole lot of other high-level heart item. Well, that's not entirely true. I do have the Swaddled Thunder, but unless I can come up with something clever to do with fabric and fiber, probably best that I forget that that exists. And I believe the January Sanguinary is actually quite strong. So yeah, this is definitely a time I should be playing around. And I can't recall if there is a heart flower, because I use it so rarely for heart. So we'll do our usual trick and just see if we can see. Oh yeah, there's definitely some heart flowers. What about renewable heart flowers? Yeah, apparently there are. Trumpeter's Lily? I mean, I might as well. Okay, so... Now, one option I have is just sort of throwing together all of the different skills, because a good example of this would be the inks. The inks actually have alternatives that aren't necessarily related to their primary aspects, but that's a little more time consuming for an episode that's kind of close to the end anyway. So let's just see what we can find. So yeah, we can go all the way up to a Swaddled Thunder. We kind of have everything that we need here. Now, maybe we try and do something with the Thunder Skin anyway, because if we combine the core, the drums, and dances, it seems to me like we have enough already. Weaving and not working, I'm expecting... Now that's interesting. So I will try this again at the loom, but not right now. Okay, Gideon Soaks we already worked out. Now that might be something that's worth making anyway. but I don't. Again, I want to be kind of careful in terms of when I, I want to be careful in terms of how I'm using the memory, because unlike some of my other playthroughs, this actually sort of matters. Yeah, so it looks like we've got two that want the loom. So I'm not exactly opposed to making Gideon soaks. Okay, so I am interested in the fact that Strings and Songs generates the cheerful ditty, because I think if we wind up with a Thunderskins Paean, we get a we potentially get a higher level memory. Or yeah, no, potentially higher level memory. But that's all I can get with this existing combination. So let's see what the loom gives me, just so that I can sort of register that as a and yeah, these only take fabric. So I do have a little bit of a cheat in the sense that, yes, we have this warp, but I technically also have the 6 from the Swaddled Thunder. So this should probably give me pretty much everything. Or almost everything. We're not going to get the Swaddled Thunder itself, because that requires the intermediate item. But we should at least be able to get some recipes off of... And I mean, if I could drop the... Okay, actually, this might be worth making the Frith Weft just so I have it. It's a little weird, but I'm not opposed to that. There we go. I think we already did these, but I'm gonna just double check. And apparently I forgot to do the Edicts Inviolable. Okay. So I do want to play around with the sky. But I don't think it's going to be as exciting as the other one. So Deer Day Lens, I actually don't remember if that gives sky. It does. Okay. Now it looks like the best I can really hope for here is either another Deer Day Lens. It would certainly be better than the Astrolabe, which would only give me the 1. My other alternative would be to try and use one of the altars, but I'm just trying to think what else would give me a high level of sky. I mean, there's the Swaddled Thunder, but that only takes fabric, and I can't think of another thing other than the loom, which takes that fabric. So I'm not exactly hoping for a miracle here, but again, let's take a look and see what sky gives us. And I'll... oh, actually I can't add Inks of Revelation. I wonder, can any of the inks go in here? I suppose I only have the 1 available now. I don't have Inks of Power, and Inks of Containment is being used to make Solomon's Preparation. So yeah, let's take a quick peek at what kind of sky we can evaluate. Oop. All right, there we go. The Ichor Vitreous. Distill a pale and watchful lantern fluid. Now, this wasn't a result of the gale. This was actually a result of the lantern, but I'll take it. So, Oronoscopy, I seem to recall with the Essential Periost there was something, but I also think that's a level 15, so unless I can come up with something really powerful, we're waiting on that. I actually think we wasted some time on that in one of these previous episodes, so... Sights and Sensations... Okay. Sacromea... This one... Oh! I should actually see if I can... No, this needs the 2 Deer Day lenses, but maybe if we did Sacrolamea with... I do actually want to combine that with the okay. I'm doing a very good job of finding just about everything I don't need. Still, hard to complain. Anyways, I do like the idea of making the it's the Mazarine Fife is essentially the recipe that I had there. I'm just trying to think. The storm actually doesn't get me as much as I think it does. So the storm brings me up to 6, and then I would need to find 2 more sources of sky. I'll take a quick look at the crafting bench. That's... okay, no, that is a sky. I was going to say, I'm just reflecting on the number of things that I found that aren't sky for this one. But again, it's not the sort of thing I want to complain too loudly about, just because I am getting some options for later. I believe we did something with furs and feathers earlier. Anyways. I think I was talking about Gideon's Soaks before, or the Thunderskin's Paean. I kind of feel like the... oh no, Frithweft was the one I was going to go for. So we can take the warmly colored yarns and turn that into something else. So we'll take the core, we'll take the... oh yeah, so I guess no drawing up the water on that one. That's fine, I'm still okay making it. Combine that with the Gale. Frithweft, perform a piece weaving to manifest heart aspect. Weaving a knot working plus scholar level heart plus fabric creates Frithweft. So that is an intermediate ingredient that winds up giving us the Swaddled Thunder, but of course we've gotten the Swaddled Thunder through other means. Now I don't want to go too much later, but I do also want to make a little more progress over the course of the day, so I'm going to go a little bit later. Oh, that's a shame. Let's bring back the core. Can't use that to drop water again without running the risk of losing it overnight, but there it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. But yeah, what I think we'll do for the rest of the day, my hope would have been at the end of this episode to get her working on the blackened yard, but I did sort of kind of crawl into a bit of a pit in terms of playing around with the loom. Okay, we've got Solace. But I figure in our worst case, we take either the metal, the Fost, or the Shapt to... we use that to get the satisfaction that we need. One of the nice things about talking with a follower is that we do spin off a bunch of surplus memories, which means I can experiment a little bit with crafting. I'm sort of at the point now where I would want to be careful about anything that would take 90 seconds, but everything else is sort of fair game. So with Keeper level Winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the Great Ink Nillikant. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of his preparation. I should try drinking one of these every night, see if that does anything for my character. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. Well, sorry, we'll give it 2 seconds and then we'll... Okay, so another gossip. But yeah, so I'm a little worried about where we are with Mrs. Kill, but I do have a few options available to me. What I can do here, I can get one more actually don't think I need that many elements of the soul now. Well, let's go for it anyway. So one of these I'll probably use to just make some money again. The rest I will employ either towards crafting items that I think I might need, or will examine Levinson's work and then we can move on to the next bit. I also don't remember if I looked at the russet couch, but I can worry about that later. And then, yeah, we'll get one step closer into the parts of the house that fall under the nocturnal period. And then either we'll find some books, or the new season will maybe, we'll say, hey, part of the summer schedule is to follow up on a few of these works here. But again, the world's sort of my oyster. I actually have a few different choices in terms of where I can go with the playthrough. So essentially, much like most of the cases for Book of Hours, it's really just a question of, one, like, what opportunities are in front of you. That's always a really good way to make decisions. But a second one is just simply, what do you feel like doing? And originally I was sort of like, well, it would be sort of nice to finish off the solar period and move on. But now that we've got a little bit of the story in terms of following through on the fire, like, maybe we're a bit more willing to kind of go through the Cougar bit and see what happens. So anyways, as always, thank you very much for watching. I know Mondays are a little bit of a mixed bag for folks just because I am taking the time to remember where I was before. But I hope it was a sufficient diversion for the start of your week. I actually had some really good news that came in last week, but I didn't want to spend too much time on personal stuff. So we'll maybe leave that for another time, or maybe you'll just notice it through opportunities for me to do more videos or something like that. But whatever the case may be, I hope you have a good time until we see one another again. And the next video will be on Wednesday after the traditional Tuesday break. Until then, take care.